Live from New Orleans, it's the Blitz, broadcasting from the AA Best Bail Bonds Radio Row. Ahead of Sunday's game, here's Jason Minix and Joe Reinagel on 94.1 San Antonio's Sports Star.
It is the Blitz here on 94.1 San Antonio Sports Star. He is Joe Reinagel. I'm Jason Minix in New Orleans on Radio Row. Brad Hopkins joining us now, and during the break, we were talking about all kinds of things and a variety of accents. And then that commercial just played. And Brad, you were like, what the?
Hey, like you said, any way to make money, right?
I mean, Valentine's Day is coming up. You never know. That's what she needs.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, how do you approach the wife with that? Honey, I got a gift for you.
I was listening to the radio the other day. I came up with a great idea.
Yeah, Minnick said.
Exactly.
How
you guys doing?
We're good, man. Yeah. So Oilers and Titans, right?
Yeah,
Let's go back, Oilers. You were talking about your time in San Antonio, the old training camp days over at Trinity University. And I remember, going out there and, half the time I thought I could walk on the field and just hang out. I mean, it was just such a different vibe for a training camp.
Totally. Yeah. And, obviously the times are different. And we're going to continue to say that as we get older, right? Because things are going to be different in the next 10 years than they are right now. We're going to be looking back and saying, oh, my God, remember 2025? It's the same thing can be said about 1993, right? Going back to the 1900s when we practiced at Trinity University, and then we went up to Austin to practice against the Cowboys at Burger Field, and you did these, collective practices working against each other. Those were the days that molded me, playing football in Texas. The heat of San Antonio, then the humidity of Houston, and just really kind of wondering where San Antonio fit in that whole mix. They had this cool Astrodome that we play, the Alamo Dome that we played all of our preseason games in, the ones that were at home.
Yeah.
And I thought for sure there's going to be a future there because, there's a fan base that supported football. And, of course, we see them supporting basketball and all the things. But, yeah, it was just a unique period in time. The media situation wasn't near as it is right now. I mean, they see $1 million setups, just to be presented on Radio Row. Even though when I was at the Super Bowl, we had media night, it wasn't a situation like this where the teams were, traipsed through and got to talk to all the media factions. But I can't imagine it being anything like the setups that we're seeing here in New Orleans.
It's incredible. And I tell you what, I grew up an Oiler fan. I did.
Yeah.
I was one of the few because most people in San Antonio are Cowboy fans, right?
Fans.
So I was
America's team.
I was different. So I'd be at Trinity University watching you guys, one of the few that were out there.
Good.
But it was good.
You're a good man, Jason.
He's Joe.
I'm Joe. He's Jason. That's
but
fine.
You got it right, though.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I've got to ask you a question because I give my Houston Texan friends a hard time. What do you think about the Tennessee Titans with the Houston Oiler uniforms, kind of rubbing it in their noses?
I was talking to Sean Jones, who was one of our defensive ends when we left the city of Houston. And he was saying, imagine what would have happened if Bud Adams would have left the name and image for the Houston Oilers to the city of Houston and then just started the Tennessee Titans. There would be no Texans. You'd be talking about one of the historically great programs that started in the AFL-NFL merger back in the 60s because that's where it started. Bud's one of the founding fathers, basically, of the NFL because of them agreeing to do things collectively with the AFL and the NFL. And so if the Houston Oilers still existed in 2025, it goes all the way back generations. Now, the thing is, my son was born in Houston. Both my sons were born in Houston. My grandson was born in Houston. And my daughter-in-law doesn't know anything about the Houston Oilers that previously existed. All she knows are the Houston Texans. And she grew up as a kid watching the Houston Texans. And she doesn't realize that there was a Love You Blue era that existed there when Bum Phillips was a coach, even to when Jerry Glanville was a coach and some of these other guys that were there. Jack Pardee was my coach when I first got there, right? That history kind of got forgotten. The Astrodome, when we left there and they didn't fill it with new bodies as far as football fans, it's full of cats and dirt, what I mean?
Yes.
When they built the new stadium next to it. But you can see a history that kind of died when we left. But to lose sight of who we are, because we still in Nashville hold the memory of the Houston Oilers close to us, because we say our franchise wasn't started in 1997 when we moved to Nashville. It was started in 1967 with the Houston Oilers.
It is interesting because you're one of the few that actually wore both uniforms. So you have that connection. But the Oiler connection, I'm going to guess, in Nashville, they don't have that same connection to the Love You Blue. You know, like I know it pisses off Texans fans when they see that logo, that helmet. It's beautiful.
Best looking uniforms in the league.
Worn by the Titans.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, Jason, there aren't a lot of people in Nashville that recognize the Love You Blue era because obviously we were in Texas. Pro sports wasn't even in existence in Middle Tennessee, in Tennessee, period, before we actually got up there, okay? But they do recognize that this is a unique situation where a team moves its entire organization from one state to another state, and then they drop the name because there's no oil derricks in Tennessee. So the Tennessee Oilers just rang false. It didn't make much sense. And then they wanted to have their own identity. So that's where they came up with Tennessee Titans. The city voted it in. They loved it. And an era started from there. But I will say this. Me and Steve McNair were the last Oilers. The last two remaining Oilers. Because we were both drafted by the Houston Oilers franchise. We moved from Houston to Nashville. And then when people like Eddie George finished as a Cowboy and other great players that we had that came up as Oilers either finished before us. When Steve got traded to Baltimore and I retired in 2005, the same year, that was the last of the Oilers. Wow. Nobody else was there after we were there.
Wow. I mean, that's got to make that's something to be proud of, I would think.
I love it. I love the fact that, Amy Adams Strunk, the daughter of then owner Bud Adams, she recognizes that history, which is the reason why she's tapped into and had that situation you're talking about where they wear the Love You Blue colors. Now it's
a couple middle fingers to Houston.
It is, yeah, it is, because we only break it out playing them.
Yeah.
Yes,
but it's to remind them, and it's also for the fans that still live in Houston. Joe, for the guys that went to Trinity University, watching us play in the powder blue, to say that hey, this existed. You football fans that still now are season ticket holders to the Texans and used to have season tickets to that building that's right next door called the Astrodome, this is for you. This is for you.
Nice. You see that pledge? It's for you.
Mm-hmm.
Our producer pledged the big Texan fans.
And he hates the Titans.
I can't listen. I do love the way that the organization has adapted, and the way that the city has embraced the Texans, because Houston needs football.
Yeah.
They always need football. And the fact that they went, I think, 5 years before they got another team, that's sad. You know what I'm saying? And so when they were awarded, the Texans and given another opportunity to get back into the league, I felt happy for them. I certainly didn't want them to forget about who we were, because even though we're in Tennessee, those guys that basically, can I say popped our thing?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
In Houston, right? Because that's where I cut my teeth.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? That's where I was part of the AFC Central. A lot of people don't even remember
That's
the
right.
Central.
That's right.
It was us, the Bengals, the Browns, and the Steelers, man, on a regular basis. And for those fans that still live in the city of Houston and remember those days, hey, this is for you, man. So sorry, Pledge, in there in the studio.
Brad Hopkins joining us here on the Blitz. Pledge is texting us War and Peace right now. We're trying to figure out what. Pledge, open up talk to Brad, man. Cry to him about what's going on.
Look, I grew up with the Oilers. I grew up with this season ticket holder. My parents always took me to these games. War Moon, the run and shoot offense, Jack Pardee, Chris Dishman, Jeffries, Givens, like these were my guys growing. Y'all were my guys, and then Bud Adams ripped the franchise from me, and I felt like I was left with nothing.
Oh, what happened? Listen, what happened was Jack Pardee couldn't get over the playoff hump. He had some really good regular seasons, ones that made us contenders, and we got to the playoffs every single year that he was there. But when you have the debacle that happened in Buffalo, where you're convincingly in control, you seem like you're going to win, and that was the team that should have went to the Super Bowl and gave Bud.
They would have beat Dallas.
They would have beat
Dallas that
Super
year.
Bowl.
Yes.
And then Bud says, "Hey, look, if we don't go all the way this year, we're gonna change up some things." Which is why Warren ended up in Minnesota. All the other free agents that we had, or players that were really good players on that defense, were gone, disbanded, and went in other directions. And they ultimately ended up firing Jack Pardee in 1994, the year afterwards. That was the beginning of the end, right? People were tired of Bud. They were tired of him seemingly holding the city hostage when it comes to renovating the Astrodome, when that thing was a dump, bro. You know, Pledge, Jason, Joe, you guys know when the sewer system breaks in the home locker room and we're literally sitting there with a foot of sewer water and we had to try and pivot from that. It needed help, okay? There was nobody going to the big-time free agent was going to come be a part of that, you know? So he's saying, hey, look, I need some help. Now, had he not done that before and got that extra money and then kind of still kept things going, it is what it is. But, you know, there were so many ways that whole situation could have went. And I'm not disappointed in the fact that we started a new era of football in Tennessee, but I would have loved to finish my career.
Absolutely.
Having played 13 seasons in the same city that I bought my first house.
Nice.
You know, it is incredible, Brad. And you think about your entire career with one franchise.
Yeah.
That's unusual, too, because a lot of times as players get older, you know, teams are going to move on. They got to make their business decisions.
Let's talk about that for a minute, Jace. So teams play as hard as they do when you have a situation like the Kansas City Chiefs because the one thing that breaks up the family is losing. When you start losing, they automatically start looking at why you're losing and then replacing people that they think need to be replaced to make sure you can get back. If you love your brothers, if you love the people that you're playing with, you try your best to keep everybody, keep the nucleus together, right? It makes you want to come to work on a regular basis. So I never even hit free agency. I never even considered going to anybody else. Well, first off, the team always re-upped my contract the year before I was set to expire, right? Because they understand that there are certain positions that you got to keep them, you know, consistent. And that was one thing that helped us. And that was one thing playing alongside of Bruce for 10 years. You know, you don't see that anymore where guys stick around as long as they have, you know, to be a part of that and create the kind of, you know, experience and environment that just makes people love each other and love doing what they do together.
Outstanding. Tell him again, we're doing it for you. Next time he sees that beautiful Houston Oilers uniform, we're doing it for you, Texan fans.
Yes, Texan fans. I know it doesn't sound like that, but for those of us that have played in, now I can't speak for the Tennessee Titans that have been born into that franchise.
Right.
But speaking for someone that actually wore the Love You Blue, that was a part of that era of football in Houston, hey, we will always have love for you. So, Pledge, when your folks were taking you there, you tell them, big hugs from me and big hugs from you when you were probably a little snot-nosed kid running around the Astrodome.
He's still snot-nosed.
Love it, yeah.
But no, all right, so he should be wearing a Titan shirt is what I'm hearing.
I can't make that connection.
Yeah,
I can't make that connection. But we are called the Tennessee Volunteers for a reason, right? We helped y'all with that Texan American Mexican War.
Right. Now you're going way back. I mean, there's multiple franchises.
But I'm just saying, you know, there's always been a relationship between the two T's. I had to get used to saying UT didn't mean Texas when I got to Nashville, because every time somebody would say, hey, you want a UT game? I'm like, damn, y'all going all the way down to Austin? What the hell's going on? They're like, Austin? What are you talking about? I'm talking about Knoxville. I was like, oh, because there's a TSU in Nashville too, just like there's a TSU in Houston, Texas Southern, in Tennessee State.
Okay.
So TSU meant something, UT meant something. I just thought there was too much symmetry between the two cities.
It was meant to be.
Yeah. We'll see. Brad Hopkins here on the Blitz. You think about the Super Bowl coming up on Sunday night. The offensive line, your legendary tackle, Saquon, the way he's running, is he going to be able to get those holes, those running lanes against that Chiefs defense?
He credits the offensive line to his success, which he should. I'm not saying that he's not a great back. I'm not saying that he's not talented. But look at both he and Derrick Henry and what they've transitioned into. You think all of a sudden they just learned how to run the football in 2024? No. They've been great backs before they got to where they were at. But the difference was the guys around them, the guys that are making holes for them. Saquon Barkley has the ability to hit home runs because he hits the hole, he's patient, and he has the speed and acceleration to be able to make it happen. But you're not going to get anywhere if you have a porous offensive line and there are defenders in the backfield before you even get the ball. You know what I mean? They say the one way to stop Derrick Henry is to what? Not let him get to that third step. And the way that you can do that is defeat the offensive line in front of you. Well, guess what? Baltimore had a good enough line, a consistent enough line to be able to allow him to get those carries that gave him the magical season that he had in Baltimore, because that's a team that should be here as well.
Yeah. Did Warren Moon ever buy you guys like watches or cars or anything?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He didn't buy us cars. but, you know, obviously those guys recognize protection is paramount for them to be able to execute and do their job.
Well,
right?
Especially your position.
Absolutely. I mean, not just my position, because the left guard helps me. The center helps the left guard. and if you're slide protecting, the right guard helps the center. Every now and then you're going to be on an island, but for the most part, that unit is a unit for a reason. There's 5 positions. You don't just say left tackle, left guard, right guard, center. No, it's the O-line. And we don't ever leave the field, bro. We don't ever leave the field. You want us on that wall. Need us on that wall.
Brad Hopkins here on the Blitz doing work with our friends over at Synergenx Testosterone Weight Loss. Clearly, you're not lacking any energy.
Well, first off, some people don't even recognize that they are lacking that energy. They're just trying to figure out what the hell's going on with me. I'm barking at the kids all the time. I'm moody. You know what I mean? I'm taking naps in the middle of the day. And you're trying to figure out what's going on with you. Go get your levels checked. There's probably a low T center somewhere close to you, right? Find out exactly what your numbers are and then get on a process, a TRT program, that kind of therapy that will allow you to address those issues. And you'll be so much happier with the life that you can lead once you know exactly what's going on with your body.
Absolutely. Nice. Synergenx Testosterone and Weight Loss, 6 locations in San Antonio, synergenxhealth.com. Brad, we could talk to you all day, my friend.
Yeah, I could talk to you guys too, especially about the Houston Oilers days,
That's
San
right,
Antonio
man.
days.
Love it.
Yeah,
love you, Blue.
Yeah, we'll do this again, man. Appreciate you jumping on with us.
Thank you.
Absolutely good stuff, Brad Hopkins here on the Blitz on 94.1 at San Antonio Sports Star. And you think about what he was talking about with the game coming up on a Sunday, the idea that the offensive line and Saquon, because in really that what is those that are thinking Eagles are thinking it's Eagles because Saquon's going to have a big game. But Andy Reid, such a smart guy, is going to be there. We still have 5 minutes in the segment, Joe. While you're taking your headphones off, you're thinking we're done. We're not.
I thought you were doing a spot.
No, that's in 5 more minutes.
Dude,
all right, I know
Brad Hopkins, man.
I know you're trying to go get a picture like you say Corona. Come on now.
Love you, Blue, over here. What are we talking about? Wow.
Look at you geeking out.
I am,
man.
You
get lost in the show.
Fanboying a little bit there, yeah.
Go
ahead. What were we saying?
I have no idea. Pledge getting all upset.
I know it. I love it. Well, he learned it. I mean, now he knows that the Tennessee Titans are doing it for him. So there you go. Pledge should make you feel better, Pledge.
I don't think it does.
I
don't want to speak for Pledge, but I don't think it does.
It does.
Doing it for you, Pledge.
I'm looking at a lot of the comments there on YouTube, and I don't think it does. I look at what he's saying, and I'll obviously respect his experience because he was in the middle of that. He didn't ask to move to Tennessee.
No,
he put his roots in Houston. He thought that's where he was going to be. But the business side of football, they could have released him. He could have went to another team, all kinds of stuff. The whole organization moved. I mean, what was he going to do? Say, screw you, I'm not moving to Tennessee. Let me quit my job in the NFL? No, that's not going to happen.
No.
So he had to embrace the new culture. And, as a former player in for the Titans, I imagine Brad does pretty well making appearances around Nashville and the state of Tennessee as a Tennessee Titan. So he's got to appreciate both and try to sell it that way because, I think he does have that real love originally for being in Houston and with what the Oilers are.
Well, you see, and that explains my Titan fanship because I didn't have a choice either. I had nothing to do with the move.
You did have a choice.
But guys like Brad Hopkins moved with him. And so, I was a fan of Hopkins. I was a fan of the players that were there. And when they moved, what are you going to do? Just leave them alone? And I certainly then.
They left you.
They didn't leave me.
They left
They
you.
left that goofy mayor who wouldn't do business with them. You heard Brad Hopkins say they were ankle deep in poop in the locker room, for goodness sake.
Dude, the Astrodome is such a POS.
Yes.
I'll never forget broadcasting a playoff game. It was the New Braunfels Unicorns playing in the state semifinals with Cliff Kingsbury as the quarterback. And we're broadcasting a game. I was working at KGMB in New Braunfels with Ron Friesenhahn. And if you ever look up in a stadium and you see where the press boxes are and you see those little catwalks that are there with all the cables running on them.
Yep.
I will never forget a rat that was bigger than most cats. This is the biggest rat that I've ever seen. And I lived in New York City, and you think about some of those massive subway rats, they would have been scared of this thing. I mean, this rat, he comes walking down that catwalk, and he pops his little head up, and I thought he was coming in booth. I mean, it was a little bit smaller than a possum. That was, and it looked around. It scared us.
Yeah.
Ain't gonna lie. And then it kept walking. And throughout that entire game, there were other rats not near as big as that one, but they were just constantly just streaming along that rail system where all the wires were. And you're like, yeah, no wonder they got rid of this thing. I mean, it's like those videos you see out of the Oakland A's stadium where the possums are in the ceiling.
Yes.
It was kind of like that with that rat, but that was the biggest rat that I've ever seen. It's bigger than this football helmet right here. I mean, that rat was massive, and then its tail.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't normal.
Well, they like swimming around in poo.
Yeah, they do.
And so, I mean, but unfortunately, the players didn't want to walk around in that stuff. I mean, look, the city, you want to blame Bud Adams, but the city screwed up as much as anybody. And the politicians of Houston at that point in time screwed up that whole franchise. And look, Bud Adams had no chance. And then Nashville's begging them to come and move there and giving them, a treasure trove of stuff. And it was very difficult to say no to that when Houston wouldn't play ball with them.
It's, I get it, but the emotion is still raw.
It was a nasty divorce, I mean, it that way.
No matter what I just heard from Brad Hopkins, he did not convince one current Houston Texan fan. Not one.
They're doing it for you, Texan fan.
There's not one that said, you know what, Brad? You're right.
Study up. Study your Houston Oiler history.
I don't think Pledge bought any of what Brad Hopkins was selling.
No, you know what Pledge did?
No.
Pledge did. He did.
No.
Guaranteed.
I buy it, but he's not playing for me anymore, so he's no longer wearing it for me. None of them are.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Well, I hope the Titans keep wearing those Oiler uniforms every single time they play the Texans. Every single time. They ought to get road whites too.
Me too. We're undefeated against them in them.
I agree. Wow. And that's everybody should be undefeated against the Titans. They suck.
Is that where you play the donkey sound effect?
Yeah.
There you go. He was about to say it, but didn't want to say it.
That's all right.
Absolutely. Okay. Chris Canty is going to join us talking about a former player of a team that I care about, the Dallas Cowboys. Canty, drafted by the Cowboys, now working for ESPN. Chris Canty coming up here on 94.1 at San Antonio Sports Star.